Hello. Well, it's been a while since I uploaded my last video. It's been a few weeks now. I haven't really seen the doctor yet, so I have no update on my Parkinson's journey. However, I have been thinking quite a bit about a long, long time ago when I was a child, back in the late 40s, early 50s. And I got to thinking, boy, times have really changed. Where I grew up in Southern California, a town called Corona, California, has really changed. I went down there not too long ago and visited some relatives. So I thought, well, I think I'll just put together some thoughts about when I was growing up, my neighborhood, some of the people that lived where I lived, my neighbors, the kids I played with. I think what I'll do is I'll use old documents as I talk about way back when. I'll use an old 1951 phone book. Back then in Corona, we didn't have dial phones yet. We just had four-party lines. You'd pick up your phone and say, and the operator would say, "Number, please," and then you give them the number. So I'll use old directory, 1950 census, so you can see who was on the block where I grew up, who was there. And I have a photo of Corona, aerial photo that was taken in 1953. Today, you go to Corona, you see a freeway. The 91 goes east to west through there. So in 53, there was no freeway. So I think I'll use some of those documents, pictures of the neighbors, their houses, things like that, to talk about my past, 70-some years ago. Here's the aerial view of the photo of Corona that was taken back in 1953. What I'd like to do is start over in the lower right-hand corner down here. This is the cemetery, Sunny Slope Cemetery, where I have a lot of ancestors and relatives buried. If you take this road up, it's Rimpaw, you take it to 6th Street, this is the park, the city park for Corona, and over here is the plunge, municipal plunge where we go swimming. Heading west on 6th Street, we hit Grand Boulevard. Grand Boulevard was a circle, that's why they call it the Circle City, which was just under 3 miles in circumference. And then we have a continuation of 6th Street heading west. In the middle, we have Main Street. So the corner of 6th and Main is the center of Corona. Now, we go over here to the west, Grand Boulevard. This is called Grand Boulevard. You'll first see the old high school right here. And over here is where I went to elementary school. This is Kimball Elementary School. And then if you go up here, this is where my grandparents, my dad's side, grandparents lived. You go over to Lincoln Street, start heading south on Lincoln Street, go under or across 6th Street, and then the next block up is 7th Street. This is where I lived. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about 7th Street, right here in my neighborhood. So let's zoom in. Here's West Grand, 6th Street, going down to 7th Street. That's where my neighborhood was. And we're going to start down here about 6 houses down where Joe Jack Carroll and his family lived. Okay, we're zooming in on the 1950 census. Down here we see Joe Jack and Thelma in the census down the street. And here they are. They had a telephone, the old four-party line. And in the phone book, if you look for Joe Jack on 7th Street, they're 489R. Now the R, J, W, the different letters, tells the operator how to ring the phone, because we had four-party lines back then. Here on the next page for the census, you can see their son and their daughter, Patricia. So there's Joe Jack Carroll Jr., And then the next picture is Patricia, his sister. So they live down the street, but if you go towards Lincoln, then you'll see our house. So this is where I lived growing up. This happens to be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that my parents bought just after World War II. So in the mid-40s, they bought this house. And on this side was a living room, and this side was one of the 2 bedrooms. So just myself and 3 brothers had that one room. And my parents had the other bedroom. Looking at the census for 1950, there's my parents, my 3 brothers, Jerry, Wayne, Jack, and then myself. So we're on 7th Street in 1950. And here's the family, that my parents, my brother Jack, Wayne, Jerry, and that's me. Our phone number was Jack B. Farm, 1065 West 7th, 843J was our phone number. So now we're down here, 7th Street, 3rd house from Lincoln, and we moved towards Lincoln. This is Lincoln Street over here. There's the 2nd house from Lincoln. Oh, that's my brother Jack right here. And in this house right here was the Docomo family. 1950, you can see it would be Jimmy and Marie Docomo, and they had a daughter in 1950, Mary Jo. This is a recent photo of Mary Jo. Now their phone number, the Docomos, Jimmy Docomo, 7th Street, 843M. We were 843J, so they were our party line. When they were using the phone, we couldn't use ours. There's Jack again. Now we're going all the way to the corner next to Lincoln. And in this house, looking at the 1950 census, you can see it's Sammy, Leonie, Bertha, and Mary Ann. Now, in this picture is Sammy and Bertha, but the little girl is Mary Ann's little sister, Janet. She was born after 1950. Now here's Mary Ann. She was on the census that we just looked at. Now we're down here, we're at the corner, so now we have to go across the street and then start working down this way. So across the street from is the Smokey Inslee. This is where Smokey and his family lived. So there's Lincoln Street right there, and there's a field over there. Okay, Inslee. Smokey with Avery D is actually Smokey. So Smokey, Anna, Sylvia, and Avery Jr. was their son. Smokey's on the right, my dad's on the left. So now you can see there's 2 policemen that are neighbors. Here's Smokey's daughter, Sylvia, and Smokey's son, Avery Inslee Jr. Okay, now we're back to the neighborhood on 7th Street, and we're heading from Lincoln this direction, and the next house down right across the street from our house actually was where Bill and Gloria lived. This is Bill and Gloria's house. They had 2 kids, Margie and Bobby. 1950 census shows Bill Real, Gloria, Margie, and Bob. Here's Bill. He had like a fruit stand or something, I believe, in Corona. And his wife, there's Gloria. She was the secretary for the city manager back in that time frame in the 50s. And their phone number, we find Bill, he's on 758J. Oh, here's Margie. There's Bobby, Real. That's me and my brother Jack. This pool is at Inslee's house, but the pool was put in by the next person that bought this house. Howard Neighbor bought Inslee's house, and they put in the pool, and they said all the kids on the block can swim in it. Next to the Reals, Gloria and Bill, was Moody family. That would be Roger Moody, and his parents were Ralph and Jerry. This is Roger. He was like another brother to me. My mother would watch him because both his parents worked pretty much all the time. Now, here's Roger, my brother Jerry, Jack, and that's me. And their phone number, Ralph Moody, 831R was their telephone number. Now, what I'd like to do is remember something we used to do is go swim in the pool down here, the plunge. So my brothers and I would, from here, we'd go looking all over the place for bottles that we could take to go down 6th Street and take over to Joe Bridges or Frank's Fruit Shack, and he'd give us a couple of cents per bottle, so we'd get enough money so we can pay to get into the plunge and go swimming. I think it cost 10 cents to get in. So after we got some change, we'd start heading east on 6th Street, and then by the time we got to right in the middle of town, my brother Jack found a wallet, had about $100 in it. So what we did then was turn south on Main Street and go right to the police department. So the police department was down just a block or so, and we gave them the wallet. Now this is where Jack found the money. This is Main and 6th. He found the wallet right here outside this drugstore where Roger's parents worked. And Gloria helped the lady look for a wallet. Eventually they found out that we had dropped it off at the police station. Now this is the city hall, and if you go over here, there's some stairs that goes down into the basement, and that was the police department. So that's where we took the wallet at the police department, handed it in. Just so happens we've got Benny Biggers and Blackie and Bill Heckert were down there. Actually, at that point in time, this is just a photo of the police department. Bill and I think Stan Trinka was down there at the time. Here's the newspaper article about finding the money. That's me, Wayne, Jack, Jerry, and little Bobby Rill. Now, in the newspaper, it mentioned Robert Draggle, Mrs. Robert Draggle. I wanted to see if I can find a picture of her, the lady that lost the money. So it said Mrs. Robert. Well, here's Robert. I did find him. And once you find this person, her husband, then it's easy to go to the records and find their marriage record. And once you find the marriage record, then you can see, here's Robert. You can see it was Donna J. Adelman was his wife. So the lady that lost the money was Donna, which happens to be a 1954 Corona Senior High graduate. So that's the lady that lost the money. So she got her money back within 15 minutes. And what we do? Well, we went ahead and went to the plunge. We went to the city plunge, went swimming. Boys' locker room was over on this side. The girls' locker room was on that side. I think they built this in 1925, and by 1960s, it was too small for the city of Corona. Now, back to the police department. Here's Bill Heckert. I want to go back to Bill Heckert because he's also a neighbor. So we live over here on 7th Street, and then Smokey, a policeman. And if we go down Lincoln to 8th Street, right here is where Bill Heckert lived. And Bill Heckert, in the census record, you can see William, that's Bill, and his wife, Elizabeth. Well, she was a dental assistant, he was a desk sergeant, but in 1950, they lived on West Grand. It was a few years later that they moved to 8th Street in our neighborhood. So now there's 3 policemen living very close together in our neighborhood. Here's Elizabeth Heckert, Bill Heckert, and their daughter, Robin Heckert. Now, something about Robin, she was, on the day she was born, she was left at a phone booth in Corona, so she was abandoned. And Bill Heckert happened to have been a part of the juvenile department for the police, so he was told he had to take care of Robin. Well, she's just a baby, she didn't have a name Robin yet, but so he did. In fact, he took so much care of her, they adopted her and raised her. So their daughter is Robin Heckert. And their phone number, Bill Heckert on 8th Street, 68M was their telephone number. When I was 4 years old, I decided, I think I'll go horseback riding. Now, remember, we lived down here on 7th Street, and if you look at Lincoln Street, across there's a field, there's another field over here, and this tree down here, I saw Bonnie, a horse that lives in this field, under the tree. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna go over there and jump on the horse. So I went ahead and walked over Lincoln, went into the field, went down to the fence, went under the barbed wire fence, climbed the tree, and jumped on Bonnie. Okay, here's Bonnie. It's actually not Bonnie. This is the one thing that's not an old picture, but a picture I got off the internet of a horse under a tree. So I would come across here, there would be a fence, barbed wire fence that went under it, climbed up on the tree, out on a branch, and then jumped on the horse. Now, I didn't know if Bonnie was going to kick me off or what she was going to do, but it just so happens it was a nice, gentle horse. She slowly backed up, and a branch just kind of swept me off her back. I fell. That's the first and last time I ever rode Bonnie. Okay, now we're back at the house again. There was another time when I was about 4 years old, I decided, I think I'll go visit my grandparents. So I just left the house, went over Lincoln Street to this ditch, jumped in the ditch, and started walking in the ditch to 6th Street. Now, my parents said, never cross 6th Street. It's too dangerous, a lot of cars. So I went under 6th Street. I stayed in the ditch. I walked all the way down to 2nd Street, got out of the ditch, and walked over to Bank Street. This is where my grandparents lived, on Bank Street. Here's the ditch. Now, this is a little bit later, not when I was 4, because this store wasn't over, it's just a field. Here, this is 8th Street, down here is 7th. I walked over here. This ditch was down here. I jumped in the ditch, walked that direction towards 6th Street and on to my grandparents' house. And there's my grandparents' house. Now, this house, it was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house, and they had 7 people in the family. So the way it was set up, my grandpa said, we need another bedroom. So he built another bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. But with 5 kids, my 3 aunts had 1 bedroom, my grandparents had another bedroom, Uncle Newt in the living room, and my dad slept on the lawn for many years. And looking at the census, you can see there's my grandpa, my grandmother, Alice, and Newt, I call him Newt, but Jim. And there's my grandparents. This is the back of their house, the house that you saw the front of. There's my aunt, Alice. She was in high school at that point in time. Newt, my uncle. He was actually a little older than in this picture at the time. And their phone number, my grandparents' phone number, was 744W. Now, behind their house was a little house, and if we go to my grandparents' house, go back here, there was a little house that my great-grandmother lived in, Granny Webb. So here's the census, Mary Leah Webb. In 50, she was 80 years old in 1950, but she lived at rear of 120, that's the house, and my grandparents, the front of 120. Now, this was a chicken coop at one point in time that my grandfather fixed up for my great-grandmother. Also, my mother and 2 brothers, Wayne and Jerry, lived in this house when Dad was at war. Here's my great-grandmother. There's my grandmother and my great-grandmother. My dad's sister, Aunt Alice, lived here with my grandparents. And then whenever she needed to go to school, she would walk across this field And then once you got to this area, this is where I went to elementary school, Kimball. That's where my kindergarten class was. And all she had to do was just walk across the street and she's at high school. So a lot of times if if I was out in the playground with the other kindergarten kids, she'd stop by and we'd talk a little bit, visit. I remember my kindergarten teacher was Miss Zothet, and during Halloween time frame, we were out in the play area, and the second, third, fourth graders were walking down the hall, and Mrs. Zothet said we could go over by the chain link fence and watch the bigger kids parade by in their uniforms and their costumes. And while we were there, she said, okay, if you could please hold the hand of the person that's next to you. The little girl that was standing next to me when we were watching the kids walk by was Lily or Lydia Delgado. Down below you can see her kindergarten picture, and off to the left is my kindergarten picture. And up above, that was a few years ago when we were having our 50th high school reunion. Well, now that I put all that together, I just realized that my grandparents, my great-grandmother, throughout that whole story I was telling, it's on my father's side of the family. I didn't really talk about my mother's side of the family. I don't know if I should put a video or anything together about my mother's side. But anyway, well, here's a picture of my grandmother, my mother's mother. This is my mother's mother, Grandma Kincannon Evans McClendon Ubi Bradbury Lewis Collins. She was married 7 times. And it looks to me like she's out looking for dinner. If you remember some of the old stories that you might come up with from when you were a child, write them in the comments down below. I'd like to read them. Talk to you later. Bye.